Saints Row 4 is exactly what I wanted from the end game of Saints Row the Third, especially when I heard about Enter the Dominatrix all those years ago. It is likely one of my favorite games of all time, and that is strictly because it let me live out my headcanon for the origins of my OC, the Red Scarlet. Firstly, I think the characters are better written than in 3. It does do a decent job of introducing all the characters and exploring their personality, and while I do think you should at least play 3, at least to understand some of the characters in greater depth, there are also throwbacks to the older games that I personally don't get, but don't really feel left out on, so if you missed 3 and don't want to play it, I still think you'll have an overall good experience. Zinyak is also a decent antagonist, and makes a great foil to our character, being almost the polar opposite, being a well-spoken intellectual with keen interest in other cultures, despite destroying the planet. The simulation angle blends well with his desire to explore the culture, and the developer's desire to reference tons of things from hit media and continue to make the GTA parody zanier. The execution of the simulation world is a little hit or miss for me. While I like the concept and the reminders of it being in a simulation, it also does take away from the world a bit. While it isn't as bad as remastered, it does feel a little less lived in than Saints Row the Third, but excluding the intentional glitches, it does look better than 3 in regards to textures and improved colors. Overall, the art design is basically identical, but it still does provide some interesting places to see. Audio is also solid with a huge array of music on the radio that can be played even when outside of a vehicle. There's also positional sound in this game, what will make audio play from different channels depending on which direction it comes from. Somehow it manages to do this better than remastered, as while missions with allies are far more rare than in 3, I can't remember a single time where I was struggling to hear a companion, even if I got separated from them, which helps a lot more with the flow of the game. This also blends in well with the great gameplay. The movement and melee feels incredibly good, and remains one of the best superhero sims on the market. The game is fantastic at making you feel powerful with the powers while still requiring guns in tougher situations and boss fights. While there are QTE moments, these are restricted to bosses after your fight, and don't really overstay their welcome, as you can choose how often you encounter them. The gunplay is identical to Saints Row 3, but I prefer the customization options available to your guns. The minigames are also another highlight, and much better than the versions in 3 for the most part. Unfortunately, much like remastered, there is no improvement to accessibility. There are subtitles, but there is no in-game way to change either the written or spoken language. There are difficulty options that can be changed at any time, and you can change key bindings on mouse and keyboard. But Saints Row 4 did perform reasonably in convenience. It's available on PlayStation 3, 4, Xbox 360, One, and Switch, as well as being available digitally on GOG, Steam, and the Epic Games Store. The menus are basically identical to 3 and function reasonably well, but there was an update that pushes the game through the Epic launcher when you play it on Steam, which disappointed some players. I did notice a couple of unintentional bugs, the first being a T-pose if you timed the jump button correctly under specific circumstances, but I doubt most people would find this. Another involves your hair disappearing on the ship if you wear a helmet in the simulation, and I also encountered the decapitated head of an enemy remaining in my hand during the next cutscene. But I didn't find any game-breaking bugs, but I did run into GPU memory loss issues on weaker hardware that led to frustrating crashes, but I think this may have been fixed in a more recent patch and didn't experience it on my current gear. But outside of those crashes, I think that Saints Row 4 is insanely fun, and I think is a hero game that others probably should be compared to. I honestly really recommend it for players who can handle the mature themes and don't mind its shortcomings, but I don't think it quite earns a must-play. This is mostly because it doesn't quite have the same lasting impact feel that I think the other must-plays have. So in the end, I think that this game earns a fairly strong, decent rating. But let me know what you think about the Saints Row series down in the comments below. Check out my last video on Two Worlds 2 and consider subscribing. Until then, this has been Rob the Slob, and I'll see you in the virtual commute.